cases close, but some never rest. When silence screams, we listen. This is dead and wrong.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Liz.
And I'm Sam.
And I'm a slacker.
That she is. She sucks.
I told her to be ready by 11:30, hoping I could finish some of my episode notes. It's now 11:50, and I just finished them.
I'm always waiting on you.
Says the woman that didn't even have the document open.
Shut up. You didn't label it right.
It was labeled as episode documents. This is Dead and Wrong, your weekly podcast for all things dead. People, animals, ghosts, you name it. If it's dead, we're going to cover it.
And today we're going to give you another unsolved serial killer spree case.
Yes, this is going to be your third serial killer episode for the month. And this is episode 27, The Doodler.
I'd like to point out that I think you're a serial killer of putting these in multiple in a row.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
I'm letting people enjoy the serials. Did you know that in the 1970s, California had an unprecedented surge of serial killers who were all active at the same time?
I did.
That doesn't surprise me. At one point, it was believed that there were more than 20 killers active and all working independently. Now, some of our true crime enthusiasts and even some of your regular Joe Schmoes have heard about some of these killers. The Golden State Killer, the Hillside Stranglers, the infamous Zodiac Killer, and Edmund Kemper. Outside of California, just as famous as the rest of these, Ted Bundy was also actively killing. But without truly looking into it, you wouldn't realize that there were actually other killers out there terrorizing people and tearing families apart. They just weren't getting the coverage that these other ones were getting. It is January 27th, 1974, and the San Francisco Police Department received an anonymous phone call. The caller told the police, "I was walking along there, and I thought I saw somebody lying there. But I didn't want to get too close to him because you never know what could happen."
Did they think it was a mannequin?
I almost wonder if the person who anonymously called the police was the killer. So this conversation with the police was in regards to a body discovered near Ocean Beach. When police arrived about 2 a.m, they discovered the body of 50-year-old Gerald Kavanaugh. While on scene, the police were able to point out a few things. First off, he had been stabbed multiple times. There was also what appeared to be a defensive wound on his left hand, showing that he had more than likely put up a fight. The coroner stated that his body was in a supine position and was already showing the beginning signs of rigor mortis. Gerald still had on his underwear, his shoes, socks, pants, a shirt, and a jacket. He still had his money on him, and he still had a Timex watch around his wrist. Back then, that brand of watch was anywhere from $10 to $25, meaning that today it would be $67 to roughly $170. This meant that the watch was not cheap. And all this told the police that this was not a robbery gone wrong because obviously he wasn't robbed. Now, the police were actually not able to find too much on Gerald originally because he was a John Doe. But when they did figure out who he was, they learned that he was born in Canada on March 21st, 1923, and then spent the rest of his life in San Francisco. He was a Catholic, never married, and worked in a mattress factory. And that's roughly all they could find on him.
Oh.
On June 25th, the same year, an unidentified woman would find a body at Spreckles Lake in the Golden Gate Park. This was 27-year-old Joseph J. Stevens. This woman called a man named Warner Jepson, told him about finding the body, and then he called the police. The police arrived on scene, and learned that Jay had been stabbed 3 times. They also found blood in his nose and his mouth. When asking around and trying to backtrack about where Jay had come from, they learned he was last seen the previous night leaving Cabaret Club on Montgomery Street in the North Beach neighborhood. After canvassing the scene, the police determined that Jay had more than likely driven his killer to the park. Texas-born, Jay was a pretty popular female impersonator and had even managed to get chosen as the summer replacement at Finichio's. Finichio's was an old-time club that had opened up in the 30s and was once known as a hotspot for military personnel and celebrities. By the 70s, it had turned into a large tourist attraction and was known for, quite frankly, discouraging the gay community from being around. Jay had first appeared on stage in 1956 and impressed everyone with his impersonations. Like, people had talked good things about him, they knew who he was. But as he continued to perform, it became less about impersonation and more about making gay comedy. Well, seeing as the club wasn't encouraging the gay community to be around, this did not sit well. It was never pointed out for Gerald, but through the connection, Gerald, Jay, and all the other victims were all a part of the gay community. They were targeted because they were gay.
So, do we think that this guy was gay?
I think he was having a sexual identity crisis.
And he had to take his frustration out on
Other gay men. It's not the first time something like that has happened.
That was horrible. Now I want to ask a question. The guy who was doing lady impersonations, was he like the first drag queen?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I didn't read anywhere that he was, and I feel like if he was the first drag queen, it would have been pointed out. He was just very good at what he did.
that's really cool.
So, and I do want to point out, because I think this kind of was the root cause of the fact that this is an unsolved serial killing case, is that outside the club scene, obviously slowly pushing out the gay community, and now you have someone who's clearly killing the people a part of the gay community. There was also the fact that the gay community was actively having issues with law enforcement, because technically around this time, being gay was a crime.
It was illegal, yeah.
So in the
Stupid.
late 1974s, early 1975, the San Francisco Police Department, which at this point I'm just going to call SFPD, was actively looking for and arresting any man they believed to be a part of the gay community. This went as far as one officer, Officer William Gay, which I find hilarious, was
He's not allowed to arrest people.
who are gay, not with a name like that.
He can't.
So he would be driving through the Golden Gate Park in a pickup truck looking for strolling men. He would then stop and stretch out, making sure he showed a bulging basket in his tight Levi's. If the man made an advance towards him, he would arrest them. He was like, "Look, I have a big dick."
Sorry, but if you're stretching yourself out to show your bulge, you should be arrested. That's a crime against my eyes.
So, obviously, if the man made an advance towards him, it showed that he was gay, and then Officer Gay would arrest them. This point is not funny. So if we do laugh, just know it's somewhat towards our previous comments. It even got to the point where Officer Gay and his partner, Officer Cornelius Lucy,
Lucy and Gay.
Gay Lucy.
Anyways, straight face. Come on.
Yeah, straight face. So they found somebody, and after noticing a minor traffic infraction, stopped him. Officer Gay did his stretching thing, and Lawrence Chandler made an advancement. And so they beat him so badly that he suffered brain damage. It's because he's gay. And that's a crime.
What if this person felt like if they didn't, not participate, but whatever to survive these two big burly guys coming at him?
Maybe.
Come on, that's not fair.
Now, Gay and Lucy were not charged because Lawrence was too scared to press charges, but he did win. He sued them, the actual police department, and won. And I'm not going to do math in my head, but for the time, won like $225, which I'm sure is a few thousand now.
Yeah, it would be good for him.
So now, July 7th, still in 1974, rolls around, and Tueba Weiss was walking her dog, Moondance, which is such a cute name.
Moondance.
Call him Mooney for short. Come here, Mooney. She was walking him when he took off and started running. Well, Weiss, I'm going to say her last name. I cannot pronounce her first name.
Fair.
So Weiss followed him and found a man that was just lying on the ground, not moving. And somehow she said just by looking at him, like she knew he was dead. And so she called the police. This was 31-year-old Klaus A. Christman. He was a German national and was actively working at Michelin. The last place he had been seen alive was at a popular chain restaurant, Bojangles.
Not the fast food place.
It's not the fast food place?
Bojangles?
Yeah. I'm assuming that's what it was.
No, but the Bojangles fast food one came from the South, not from San Francisco.
Yeah, I was literally thinking it was the fried chicken place.
All right, now you got me needing to Google things.
She's going to Google. I'm going to continue. Klaus had been stabbed at least 15 times, and his throat was slashed in 3 different places. The investigating inspector at the time, David Toshi, was noted saying it was one of the most vicious stabbings he had ever seen. Sam, you'll be interested in this next part. David, he said this was horrible, the worst I've ever seen. David was one of the investigators for the Zodiac killer. So he'd already been dealing with the Zodiac killer and said this was one of the worst slashings he's ever seen. That's when you know it was bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he's already working on a Zodiac killer, he'd had his fair share of homicide scenes. Police noted that Klaus was wearing a tan leather jacket, black side zipper ankle boots with brown Cuban heels, a white Italian Sele shirt, orange bikini briefs.
Bikini briefs.
Yeah, apparently wasn't wearing pants, just the briefs. A blue moonstone ring, and a brown camo ring with a gold wedding band. Upon the first arrival of police, Klaus had not been able to be identified, but after putting his picture in the paper, his family was able to come forward. When looking into his personal belongings on his persons, police found a makeup tube in his pocket, which led the police to believe that he was a part of the gay community. This basically linked all 3 men together that they had recently found. And this is when they started to realize that they had a serial killer on their hands. Another serial killer.
What if he was just holding it for his girlfriend or wife? Like, come on.
Could have been.
Or his sister.
I think the orange bikini briefs kind of gave him away.
He could have been from Europe, okay?
Well, he's German.
Well, see, that just tells you right there. That's normal.
Germans like to wear orange bikini briefs.
They do still to this day. Okay, hang on. Bojangles started in North Carolina.
Okay.
It opened in July 6, 1977. The Bojangles in San Francisco was known as a very popular gay dance nightclub.
So it wasn't the chicken restaurant?
No.
My bad, guys. I heard Bojangles and started thinking of fried chicken. I really like
because you're always
chicken.
hungry.
I like fried chicken. Okay? If you get their biscuits and then you cut them in half and put butter all over them, amazing.
And back to the story.
I didn't eat dinner yet. So, like I said, they now realized they had a serial killer, which was probably like, are you serious? Because they were already dealing with so many. But this serial killer did seem to only be targeting gay men. Police reported that these similarities were basically that all three had appeared to have been driven to some kind of remote area. They were all stabbed in the front and the back, and all of them had been stripped of their identification or property that could lead to an identification. Once they were able to figure out who Klaus was, they learned he was actually married.
See, he was holding that
He
lipstick
left
for his wife.
behind a wife and 2 kids.
Oh,
His wife and 2 kids were still in Germany. He was in the city staying with his friends, Mr. and Mrs. Booker Williams, and had been there for roughly 3 months. I'm assuming he moved, was trying to make his life, and then was going to move the family, because that's what
Get
a lot
settled
of people
in.
did back then.
They still do it today.
Once his family was involved and realized what happened, they were able to have his body flown back to Bamberg, Germany for his burial. So his family was able to bury him.
That's good. At least he got to go home.
So now that it was clear that the gay community was being targeted, there were conflicting sides within the SFPD. Some members wanted to look into it and try to find the killer, but most really didn't care.
Surprise, surprise.
Most of them felt that if gay men were being assaulted for being gay or robbed, they had it coming. These were the same ones, though, that also believed that women had it coming when they were sexually assaulted. These were the men that were in charge of protecting the streets of San Francisco, meaning really protecting white men, white straight men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was messed up times.
On May 12th, 1975, roughly a year after Klaus was found, the Doodler's 4th victim was found. A hiker found the body of 32-year-old Frederick Elmer Kappen behind a sand dune between Vicente and Oloe Street. Fred was wearing a blue corday jacket, multicolored Picasso shirt, blue jeans, brown socks, brown shoes, and also had a pair of blue shorts with him. Both his jacket and shirt were soaked with blood when he was found. He had been stabbed in the aorta and the heart. And they were able to locate marks in the sand that showed he had been dragged about 20 feet. So the killer killed him and then dragged him somewhere to be hidden. Fred had a sister who lived in Washington. She had an obituary ran for him, and through this, everyone was able to learn that he was a Naval Hospital corpsman who was a recipient of a Commendation Medal for saving 4 men under fire in the Vietnam War. He was a war hero. He was also a registered nurse at the time of his death, and so he was able to be identified the day of because of his fingerprints. Between the military and being a nurse, he had to submit his fingerprints.
Yeah.
He was actively living with his grandparents and continuing his nursing education. So he was actively in school, actively working as a nurse and living with his grandparents, and was a war hero. The last confirmed victim was found on June 4th, 1975. Another hiker. I feel bad for these hikers, man. They're just out there trying to enjoy nature, dead body.
Well, I mean, as the girls that we love so much always say, fresh air for dead people.
Facts. # morbid is amazing. So, another hiker found the body of 66-year-old Harold Goldberg on a Lincoln Park golf course about 10 yards off of the trail. He had been slashed across the neck like Fred. His pants were unzipped, and he was not wearing any underwear. This is gross. Maggots and fly larvae were already occupying his face.
Well, he was out there for a little bit.
The coroner reported he had been dead for about 2 weeks by the time he was found.
Mm-hmm.
Harold was a Swedish man and a professional sailor. I'm going to need you to say one of these words. You probably will see which one I need you to pronounce. Immigration records showed that between June of 1930 and July of 1940, he was traveling all over the world. He stopped in ports like Boston, Puerto Vita, Cuba, Shanghai, Melbourne. I need you to pronounce
San
that.
Luis Obispo.
I can't pronounce that to save my life. Yokohama and Liverpool.
Out of all of those, that's the hardest one for you.
The Obispo part always messes me up when I'm like saying it all together.
Oh, so funny.
Harold became a citizen of the U.S. on August 15th, 1955. 5 months after Harold was found dead, the SFPD would release their first sketch of the suspect. The killer was known to frequent bars and restaurants in the Upper Market and Castro areas. Note, the Castro areas were known spots that the gay community usually flocked to. They felt safest there.
I would like to point out that when I looked up Bojangles, that territory, the area, was called the Tenderloin.
Remember that.
Yeah.
So, they believe that the killer was black, between the ages of 19 and 22, was about 6 feet tall, maybe a little shorter. I think they put him between like 5'10" and 6 foot, so he was probably really 5'9". That's for my friend Nico. He had a slim build and he wore a navy type watch cap. The killer was reported to have a quiet but serious personality, had an upper middle class education, and had an above average intelligence.
Yeah.
He was just above average. One
Poor guy.
witness noted that the killer told him he had been studying commercial art, so the police think that he might have been an art student. Why this guy was targeting the gay community? Well, the police basically stated that more than likely he was having sexual identification problems and was taking out his frustrations on the gay community. Basically, he was having feelings for men. He didn't like it. So his way of solving it was he took his anger out on him, like his anger for himself. He took it out on the gay community.
Well, he also said like he had a Navy type watch. So if he was in the military, that's already a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to add that, he's a black, tall male. That makes it even worse for community. And then if he's having relations with these men, he's probably afraid that they're going to go say something and lose his job. So, I mean, the guy was probably terrified in the same aspect too.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
No, I think everything you're saying is making sense. I mean, you already have a community, the cops themselves, that clearly don't like it. You're probably also having to hide it from the military. Like, there's probably a lot of built up anger in him.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a place to be safe for himself.
And so he's like, take it out on them because I'm a piece of shit.
Well,
with below
questionable.
average intelligence. So the police potentially could have learned more about this man. Well, considering how they treated the gay community, a lot of witnesses didn't come forward because they didn't want to be outed as gay. Because
they
they're
didn't
like,
want any punishment.
I'm going to be punished if they find out, like, I knew this guy, he died. I wish I could say something, but I don't want to get punished. I don't want to get beat.
Mm-hmm.
One popular paper service back then, the Sentinel, had actually reached out to the major news company, the Chronicle, and reported that their owner, Sentinel's owner, Charles Lee Morris, at one point had met a survivor of the Doodler.
Oh.
This unnamed man told Charles he had been getting ready to go to bed with a young black man that resembled the sketches. This was like he came to Charles after the sketches had been released.
Okay.
He was like, oh shit, like I about fucked that man. He said, but a knife fell out of his coat, and so he left.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, fam. Toodles. So this man was looked into, and the police were hoping that they would get some more information, but they never could. And the funny part is, weird part is, there's actually 3 other potential witnesses, but all of them are unnamed.
Blame.
One was a European diplomat that had been assigned to the United States in May of 1975.
Definitely don't blame him.
He met the suspect in an upper market restaurant. The suspect asked the diplomat if he had any cocaine. They then apparently went back to the diplomat's apartment, and the suspect stabbed him 6 times, and he lived. The diplomat denied having any kind of sexual relations with the man and didn't exactly know into why he was stabbed. And then he left the country and went back to Europe.
Bye.
Another witness was an entertainer who was nationally known, so someone famous like a movie star, a singer, etc. And his name was never released. That's all we know about him. That someone super famous had been in a similar situation to the diplomat, but he refused to say anything. But someone
Wonder
put
who
out
it
there
was.
that there's someone famous. The third victim, which we don't know anything about, besides the fact that he escaped the Doodler and then left the city and then has never answered a phone call or a letter. Some people know who
Interesting.
he is and they've reached out to him for his story and he refuses to say anything.
I don't blame him either.
So 3 to 4 potential witnesses / victims that survived, but obviously because of how people were back then, they refused to say anything. Now, while there are 5 victims mentioned that are confirmed to have been killed by the Doodler, there are others that may be his victim. This includes 29-year-old Granny Goose Bauman, who was found dead on May 2nd in a south of the market basement with his skull fractured.
Dang.
His scrotum also looked like, and this is quoted, someone had stomped them into nothing.
My gosh. That's
He
just wrong.
was confirmed to be a part of the gay community.
Poor guy. I love his name, Granny Goose, though.
I wonder where that came from. How do you get the nickname Granny Goose? So the 5 victims have been found and confirmed, and it's been confirmed that they do have a serial killer on the loose targeting gay men, and they're calling him the Doodler. Well, the San Francisco Chronicle, which was, like I said, the major news outlet at the time, started ignoring these killings. They released a little bit, but they didn't release too much. And this was both a good thing and a bad thing for the gay community. It was good because the gay community didn't necessarily want their hangout spots to be pointed out. They didn't want the police to come looking, nor did they want anyone else who wanted to do them harm to come looking, which I understand. I totally get it. But obviously someone was actively hunting and killing them, and they wanted him to be found and put behind bars. So it was like a 50-50. Like, we're happy because we're not being targeted, but we have a killer on the loose and he needs to be caught. One man, however, that worked for this news outlet, a Maitland Zane, that's an interesting first name, wrote a 2-page story about the homicides with a misleading title. It was called The Gay Killers.
It sounds like it's plural people.
Yeah, it sounds like it's 2 gay men killing people. Well, this story, this 2-page story, got the community more involved. Anonymous tips flooded in, and therefore the SFPD actually had to start looking into suspects finally. They did find someone who appeared to match the sketch they put out. They found him and took him into custody after he entered a Tenderloin bar. Probably Bojangles, but not the fast food restaurant. And offered to draw some of the patrons. When he was searched, not only did they find the sketchbook, but they also found a butcher knife. He ended up being arrested for carrying the concealed weapon and attacking one of the homicide inspectors during one of the interrogations. So if this was him, instead of being like, hey, pretty sure you killed them, we're going to arrest you, they're like, nope, he tried to kill one of us, we're going to charge him for that instead.
Well, because, they're afraid of everything.
They are. The police stated that after this, they looked into more than a dozen suspects, and only one of them really did actually look pretty good as being a killer. They stated that he had talked freely when being questioned, like answered almost everything without even requesting a lawyer. But when it came to confessing about the killings, he declined to say anything. And the survivors refused to testify in court or identify him.
But back then, if they did something like that, people would come after them.
Why were you at a gay bar?
Family would turn against them.
Mm-hmm. A week after this was released, the Sentinel reported an anonymous tip was sent in with the license plate number of the suspect's car. They looked into him and they found out he was seeing a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist stated that the killer was straight and admitted during a session about committing the slayings. After this was released, the Doodler vanished and no more killings occurred.
It was the psychiatrist.
That honestly wouldn't be a bad theory.
Mm-hmm.
What if the psychiatrist was talking about himself?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh shit, I'm fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it continued again, they would more than likely just start looking into.
Yep, it's a psychiatrist.
So everyone would eventually stop talking about him. And the last major thing noted was he was a sinister black man who sat at the bar and sketched your face before taking you home to murder you.
Why was he a sinister black man? He was sketching your face at a bar. Would you look at somebody like that? All weird? They're just doodling?
That's just what the Sentinel said.
Yeah, well, Sentinel can shove it up their butt.
And that is the unsolved case of the Doodler, a killer who doodled and slashed.
You're so proud of that last one, aren't you?
I was like, potentially dine and dash, too.
Oh my gosh. No. Anyways, before she gets all jittery over there, as a reminder, we do have socials up and running. We have Facebook, Instagram, and X. We are streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and YouTube. Please remember to follow us on socials to help us grow. And if you'd like to reach out to us for any suggestions, personal stories, or cute little animal pictures, please email them to deadandwrongpodcast@gmail.com or to any of our social media pages.
Shout out to Peyton again for another cute photo.
Oh my gosh, yes. I love the black lab. He's so cute. So cute. And he will work great for when, Liz keeps torturing me with her.
Hey, I've been behaving.
Really crappy.
I told you I'd give you
stories.
a break. I'm saving the other crappy one for later.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And for everybody else, thank you for listening, and we will see you next Sunday for another episode full of all things dead.
Dead.
Bye.
Bye.